Hello, viewers of the Daily Discussion. I'm back and I'm here with a special guest in Tyler Kalich. So we're here to discuss. Everybody probably saw the primary election results, Republican, Democrat. We happen to be both Republicans, so we're going to be giving to you a little insight of what we thought about the whole primary last night. So, my kind of thoughts were I was very disappointed with the party with Mastriano.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. It's just wrong.
I just my main red flag with him was the party. We basically with the way national Democrat politics have been going, we had the race in the bag. If we would have just, I would have been okay with McSwain, but I wanted Borletta. I was pushing
Oh, I
for
want
Borletta
to.
hard.
I definitely want to for a letter too. Like you definitely. I feel that level with you. Absolutely.
The thing that I think hurts about Mastriano is he took really extreme stances, and the fact he was down at the Capitol on January 6th, and just he was that radical end of the party that isn't
Oh
going to
yeah.
sit well with moderate voters in the fall.
Absolutely. And with like that whole idea of like the independent and moderate voters, here you have Shapiro, Josh Shapiro, who's not on the far left, and then you have a guy that's the GOP nominated, Doug Mastriano, who's just on this far right. He's on the far right spectrum. And that's definitely going to steer away your independent and moderate voters. I can already see today, definitely Shapiro's attacks on Mastriano. Mastriano is going to be, and I've already seen it today, definitely. They're really going to be picking on him about January 6th. That's all they're going to talk about. Because their whole idea is, okay, despite inflation, despite the pain at the pump, despite the pain at the supermarket, despite all these shortages and stuff, January 6th. So literally to calculate something about it once January 6th, it'll be easily readily available for the moderate and independent voters to vote right into Shapiro.
Picking up, yeah, I completely agree with that. The thing that I think hurts is we nominated a candidate that doesn't can't bring together all aspects of the party. And what's really going to hurt is we nominated the candidate Shapiro wanted. And the happiest person in Pennsylvania right now is Josh Shapiro because he got what he wanted.
Oh, heck yeah. This is what the Democrats wanted. Republicans, Pennsylvania Republicans, this is what the Democrats wanted.
Of what I saw, Shapiro, and what we really messed up on as Republicans, the Democrats picked one candidate. He got to save his money, he got to sit on his war chest, and now he has millions to spend in the general. But we had multiple candidates, all spending, all fighting, all aspects of the party were all stretched out with all these different candidates. And now not only do we have to worry about them coming together in the fall, but now all of them already spent millions of dollars fighting each other.
Listen, you talk about that idea of unity, and I think that's a very, very, very great point to hit on. Excuse me. That's a very great point to hit on, because you're going to have these supporters who weren't fond of Mastriano. The reason why they didn't support Mastriano is just like you and I, is with the sense that, Mastriano is this far right extremist, that people are perceiving him to be. It's going to definitely scare those type of voters away, because here's two possibilities, maybe even three. A, they're not going to vote at all, which that's really, really bad. B, they're going to vote for Shapiro, which that's worse than not voting for all. Or C, they're going to go with a third party candidate. That's the whole thing with Mastriano, and just like with this big divide, and you really have a great point too with the money. The Democrats' strategy, which I think was actually a smart strategy, I'll attest with you strongly that they have a great strategy, was just sticking to one candidate. They have money saved. So that way then in the general election, they will dump on Mastriano. They're going to dump the whole January 6th. They're going to dump January 6th. That's all you're going to hear on the TV, the radio, the newspaper, you name it.
And
that's on the way.
One thing that I'm extremely shocked about is the Trump loyalty factor. Barletta was one of the first people, he was a national congressman, he was widely known. Then you have this figure, Donald Trump, in 2016, coming down the escalator, really saying a lot of things Americans wanted to hear, but he wasn't really catching a lot of steam. Barletta took him under his wing in PA, endorsed him, was one of the very first people to endorse him. And now I saw the day before the election, he was like, where's the loyalty? And I was thinking long and hard about this. Why would Donald Trump? Because I thought he was going to endorse that Jake Corbin because his campaign manager was like friends with Donald Trump.
I like Jay Corman. I really did. I was actually on the air loose between Jay Corman and Lou Barletta, but then needless to say, I think Jay Corman was just declining in popularity. Then eventually, recently, he dropped out.
But he was most likely, they said, he was the one Trump was looking at to get his endorsement. But all of a sudden, he drops out, endorses Barletta. Now you have Barletta and Corman on the same page. And what shocked me was the fact that in the 11th hour, that Friday or Saturday, out of nowhere, we all wake up to that morning, Trump endorses Mastriano. And I was shocked, to say the least. And
I was shocked too. The first thing that came into my mind was, Trump, you're making a mistake. That was a massive mistake.
Yeah.
Trump made a big mistake, and Trump messed up big time for sure. And
I'm going to
with that.
throw this idea because I thought last night, and I looked, and I'm like, why did he endorse Mastriano? And I think our answer lies in the Pennsylvania Senate race. And I don't know if you'll agree with me here, but he endorsed Oz fairly early, right? So
Absolutely.
You have people questioning Oz. Is he legit? Is he not legit? Which we'll get into later.
And that's what a lot of like the concerns, like especially around here, many of my friends, especially that same exact friend that went to the Dr. Oz rally with me back in February, actually voted for David McCormick. And I really tried to sway him, and I really tried my best to sway him with Oz. I'm like, listen, man, McCormick, I'm not 100% sure, because my main concern with McCormick, by the way, was just his ties with China, and he was like a hedge fund manager. Some of his shady business with China that kind of like concerned me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I really don't know, man. And then because he just followed the lies, not really like the lies, but kind of like the fallacies of those Dr. Oz is a Rhino commercial. And they point out the most faulty reasons possible. I'm like, listen, they're gonna go with these commercials. I'm like, they're not really true.
But now
what Oz said was true.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fallacies behind it. That's what I mean.
Yeah. But now I'm gonna hit you with a curveball and a fastball at the same time of what I've been thinking. What if Trump was concerned because he cares a lot about his endorsement? I mean, look at all the candidates he endorsed that won in Ohio. Like he cares about it.
Like the Senate race, like JD Vance, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And what if he was thinking to himself, Oz might not win. So he thought to himself, I need to take out an Oz insurance policy. So he goes to the governor's race. He looks at the number one guy who is Mastriano leading by about 4 or 5%. And he goes, if I endorse this guy, it will put him over the edge. I may backstab Barletta, but at the same time, I think what he did, I think unfortunately he just said screw loyalty, and he threw Barletta off the bus, literally because the bus is the January 6th reference. But I think what he did was he threw Barletta off the boat, and he took Mastriano aboard, and he said, if I endorse this guy, I'll leave Pennsylvania that last night with at least one win if Oz doesn't win. And I think that endorsement with Mastriano was an insurance policy for Donald Trump.
And I think, honestly, I really haven't considered kind of like that reasoning behind why Trump may have endorsed Mastriano. I think, honestly, it's reasonable to infer because he just doesn't want the media. He doesn't want like the media to pound on Trump saying, look, Trump's endorsement just doesn't work, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
At least, he kind of like looked to see who was ahead in the polls, which by the time, I really checked these polls out religiously. Mastriano was just really killing the opponents, was just, annihilating the opponents in the polls. I think, exactly, Trump's like, I gotta go with Mastriano, even though a lot of people might not be fond of my decision, I have to, just with that insurance idea. And I think, honestly, it's very reasonable to infer.
So, I mean, I'm going to share my screen here. We can look at some of the maps. I mean, this is the Republican primary and the Democrat primaries up above. But this is what's scary. 1.1 million votes for Shapiro running unopposed. But then add up these numbers from the Republicans, and you're getting slightly less, like a little bit, but Shapiro's still beating this in the margin with all these candidates spread out. And they had competition. Like, you had a reason to go out and vote for the Republican primary, and you didn't really have a reason to go out and vote for the Democrat primary. But Shapiro still came out with more votes.
I mean, honestly, I think people would just care more. There's probably a good bit of Democrats that went out still for the primary, just to ensure for like the Senate race that Fetterman won, or if they weren't fond of Fetterman, at least they could vote for either Lamb or Malcolm Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Also, you got to figure too, there's also probably going to be Democrats, registered Democrats, who vote in the primaries, probably especially in the Senate, trying to at least pick Fetterman, knowing that Fetterman's going to win, because then that gives Republicans a greater chance in November, just because of how far left Fetterman is. And either Oz or McCormick, they're not as far right. We have a better chance in the Senate with picking up more independents and moderates.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that shocked me is the fact that Trump, I mean, the fact that our party, the Republican Party of Pennsylvania, was pushing for Doug Mastriano. I was shocked. I mean, I don't know what they see in the guy, to be honest with you. I think it made a lot of Republicans upset, because you could see all the establishment Republicans coming out and endorsing Barletta. I mean, in terms of endorsement wise, Barletta won that battle. He just didn't get the Trump endorsement.
I think here's also why I think people went with Mastriano. They see governors like Ron DeSantis, and they looked at people like Ron DeSantis. And when they looked for these candidates, they probably saw Mastriano as a version of Ron DeSantis. Like, yeah, this man reminds me of Ron DeSantis. This is what we need. That's probably, I'm just trying to think of like what people might be saying.
Yeah. I get that. But and in terms too, I would argue Doug Mastriano is too almost far right to be in a category. He's kind of in his category with his own.
I think if you compared with Mastriano and DeSantis, I really think Mastriano is more far right than DeSantis.
If we're talking about this, I would have to say that Mastriano you'd have to put Mastriano on the same level as Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, absolutely. Or look, for example, like Madison Cawthorn, and look at what happened last night with Madison Cawthorn. He got primaried.
Yeah,
he got primaried.
And you know what's scary? That was in North Carolina. We live in Pennsylvania, where the results of the last two presidential elections have been 20,000 votes each way. A split. Trump won the state by around 20,000 votes in 16. Biden won the state by 20,000 votes in 20.
And it's like,
so,
it's
in
really
a purple state like Pennsylvania, you can't run these candidates.
Absolutely, because it's the independents and the moderates that really determine who wins. Because let's face it, those who are really on the right and those who are really on the left, you're not going to get them to change their mind. Your hardcore Democrats and your hardcore Republicans, you're not going to get them to change their minds. Honestly, you're seriously talking to a brick wall when talking to them, honestly. But the independents, the moderates, who can see both sides and are open-minded, and they're not really an established Republican or conservative or an established Democrat or liberal, that's who you can sway. That's what we need to focus on. If we can focus on trying to get candidates to appeal to those voters, we would win a darn much more elections, like way much more elections.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that we have to shy away from is Barletta had the social media game. Like, Barletta was appealing to younger people, and I feel like that's like me and you are young Republicans.
Absolutely.
But what's happening is, I mean, you see it because I know we went to some like youth government conventions where people would talk about politics and whatever. And what I'm constantly seeing is people, even under the age of 18, I know I'm 16, but I mean, people like my age are already planning when they turn 18, the same that I'm planning to vote Republican and be Republican. They're planning to be staunch Democrats. But what's happening is we're getting outnumbered. Like,
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen that in my school too. I've seen that. I definitely seen that in my school. There's especially been on my Instagram feed, probably a couple students who already like even like yeah, a couple students, even like the student in particular who actually went out blatantly and said, everyone vote Shapiro, vote Shapiro. And I'm like, I'm like, listen, I respect your decision, but honestly, it's like, what do you do to try to reach out to those type of people and kind of like, I don't know, like get
Do
them in?
you like Barletta had a strong social media game? So how do you?
Exactly. And Mastriano didn't really reach out to
Yes,
social media
he
platforms.
didn't.
He
He
hardly had social media. He hardly had
exactly.
social media outlets.
How do you honestly convert somebody like Doug Mastriano into a candidate that appeals the same as a Josh Shapiro who currently has chapters of students for Shapiro at major universities in Pennsylvania, makes TikToks? I mean, how do you compete?
Exactly. Like we could have, like, if Barletta won the nomination, the same exact thing could have happened. Students for Barletta TikToks and stuff. I think honestly I would have seen that more with Mastriano. I think Mastriano though is just one of those people who is very, very anti social media, given, with like the big tech reasoning and
Yeah,
stuff, like
there
anti Mark Zuckerberg, anti TikTok, all of that stuff.
there
But you
was
gotta
even
realize you have to use social media to reach
yes.
out.
On his last rally, it was tied with him and Kathy Barnett, which we'll get into the Senate here after this. And his last rally, he would not let the press, any of the press, it wasn't just like CNN, it was Fox too. He wouldn't let any press into his final rally. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Why? Just
I don't know.
first of all, that should have been a big red flag to the voters. If this candidate who you want for a governor refuses to have members of the media present at the final event, the final cake on the top before the big main event, that's fishy. Because you don't want someone like him being your governor who is camera shy, who is shy from the media for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that this guy almost got 600,000 votes. I mean, is this where we're at as a party now in Pennsylvania? Because if this is where we're at, we're never going to win again.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that was like my main concern too. And the same exact friend who voted for McCormick, we went to the Osney. Um, he actually voted for Borletta. But he was swaying Mastriano at first, and I told him, I was like, listen, you know, you got to think too. Mastriano's far right. I was literally telling everyone. A lot of my friends who went out to vote,
Yeah,
they're all Republican as well. I said, listen, whatever you do, don't vote Mastriano. He's far right. You're going to give Shapiro a slam dunk. But apparently, no one listens to us. And honestly, maybe they'll listen in November whenever Shapiro, if Shapiro wins, which that's probably going to be most unlikely because you have Shapiro who's not as far left, and you have Mastriano who's really far right. The independent voters, moderate voters, are going to sway left.
and
Like
that's I mean
we
that's
warned you.
sad.
We warned you,
And
folks. We warned you. I
yes,
warned everybody. And in November, when a lot of people come crying, I'm gonna be like, I told you. I told you.
now I'm going to throw you with another curveball. Kathy Barnett, who is running with Doug Shapiro or Doug Mastriano. What was the thought process that Trump, a day before, goes out, bashes her for being unelectable because of her far right policy, but then the next day endorses her running mate, Doug Mastriano, as if he doesn't have the same exact political viewpoints?
I think to
That's
say
why
that that was
I don't
ironic
like it.
would be an understatement.
I
Um,
think I think I think it was an insurance policy. It had to be. But if it didn't help because if you're Trump and want to prove to everybody your endorsement matters, why didn't you help out Lou? Why didn't you help out Barletta?
exactly. And I think if Trump endorsed Borletta, more people would have swayed towards Borletta. I think honestly, in my opinion, Borletta should have deserved Trump's endorsement more than Mastriano for sure. And you could have seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, But wasn't Mastriano the guy that was behind and voted for all this mail-in voting, like the mail-in voting process back in 2020?
Passed the bill, as well as he wanted to start like a statewide federal COVID registry, where if you had COVID, you had to submit to the state that you had COVID, so they could keep track of who had COVID and where they were going.
Which that's kind of like an infringement on your privacy.
Which is crazy because this guy's supposed to be far right.
And the same exact thing actually happened to my state legislator, actually Matt Dowling. He voted for the same exact bill, Act 77, that Mastriano voted for, and a lot of people were very unhappy with Matt Dowling, our legislator, because of that, and also too because a lot of people felt that he really wasn't getting out to people a lot, and a lot of people were contempt. And he had this big front runner for the Republican Party, Ryan Perupsky, who, by the way, I supported. My family voted for, a lot of my friends voted for Ryan Perupsky, because we all banded together and we all thought that Matt Dowling didn't do much. That because Matt Dowling voted for Act 77, which somewhat handed Biden over this victory and kind of screwed up our election process. And also unlike Perupsky, Matt Dowling really didn't do a good job with reaching out to people. Kind of like the way that Perupsky did. A lot of people felt like they were more connected with Perupsky, and Perupsky would do more of a better job representing them than Matt Dowling. But needless to say, when you have the incumbency advantage, you have the better chance of winning. And needless to say, Matt Dowling did get the nomination yesterday. Even though I like Matt Dowling too, I went for Perupsky just given the chance. I think that Matt Dowling could have did a much better job reaching out to people, because he really was reaching out to people a lot.
Yeah, and I'm gonna end with this, and then we'll check out the polls for the big race, the general. With all this coming out about Roe versus Wade possibly being overturned in a swing state like Pennsylvania, I don't know what your view is on abortion. Mine, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't think we should have like late term abortion. I'd say like 13 weeks, cut it off then. I don't think there should be like none, but I don't think we should have late. I'm kind of in the middle.
I'm kind of like that too, I'm not really extreme on abortion.
Yeah,
I understand like the rape and incest part. I kind of understand that, and I think it also kind of like depends too on like the development of the embryo for sure. Like where the embryo is developing.
Yeah, but now I'm going to throw you to this. In the middle of this heated battle against Roe v. Wade, where you could possibly now have a governor, Shapiro said he would, on a bill that comes to their desk of completely banning abortion if Roe's overturned. You have Mastriano, who says he'll sign it. You now have Shapiro, who says he vetoes it. Now you're even polar on that too. Extreme.
Because you don't have a politician who sees in the middle. It's either no abortion or yes. It's either no abortion or yes abortion.
Yeah.
And that's not going to attract the moderates.
Exactly.
That's not going to attract the moderates.
Yep. So now I'll jump to this poll quick. I chose the matchup. You can see it was just reloaded May 18th this morning. Shapiro versus Mastriano. Chance of winning is not good. We're looking at a lean D margin.
I wish that everyone who voted for Doug Mastriano would look at this. Look at this.
Looking at a margin +9 Democrat.
Look at this.
+9.
I think every single Republican who voted for Doug Mastriano yesterday should look at that.
I mean, they're already coming out with the polls.
Hurt. Their vote hurt. And their vote's going to hurt not this country, but this state.
And when you're looking, you have in the middle, you have swing, tilt, to a side, lean, safe. We are a tilt state. This is a lean. This is a +9. This is something big is gonna have to happen right here. They're already polling people. 49% they say they're gonna vote for Shapiro already, guaranteed. 40% Doug Mastriano, 10% unsure. Guaranteed straight out right now. Shapiro's winning by 8.
But here's my strategy. The 10% unsure. Chances are most of the 10%, needless to say, will probably go to Shapiro in November. One way Republicans can try to make up for this big mistake is try to sugarcoat some things and try to make Mastriano and try to present Mastriano not as extreme as he is, and try to get Mastriano not to present himself as extreme as he is. Could that help somewhat? But most than likely, probably 7, 6, maybe even 8 out of 10 of the unsures will go to Shapiro.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just not a good situation. I mean, I was hoping when he gave his victory speech, because you see candidates in the primaries sway far left, far right to get the nomination, and they come back middle. But that didn't happen with Shapiro. But I figured that was going to happen with Mastriano. He was going to come back to the middle a little bit, but he didn't. He started tying everything with religion last night, and I thought that was really bad considering he's a Christian, but Shapiro's Jewish. So now you're painting this, because I know Mastriano is part of like a big Christian like group, big Christian super PACs, like that sort of thing. But now you're making it a religion issue because Shapiro's Jewish.
That's going to make things look bad. And another thought that just popped in my head, another thing we could have seen was, if you could remember the Virginia governor election last year, when Glenn Youngkin won. Glenn Youngkin wasn't for right. He wasn't
Exactly.
for left.
And he's being a really good governor.
Virginia. Pennsylvania should have
Exactly.
Virginia.
And Virginia's more blue.
Just like Youngkin. Borletta's just like Youngkin. Borletta is a Youngkin person.
And the thing is, Virginia's more blue, and he still won. And he's still being a good governor.
They're more Democrat than Pennsylvania. They have more Democratic areas than Pennsylvania. Trust me, I have family who lives in Virginia. I've been to those areas. Virginia is more of a blue state than Pennsylvania. And somehow, if a Republican won, and whatever strategy worked for Youngkin certainly could have worked here in Pennsylvania. And the thing that's sad kind of is we can't do the Youngkin effect with Mastriano. Like Mastriano is not Youngkin.
We couldn't look far enough ahead. People didn't look far enough ahead to look at stuff like this. I mean, that pretty much wraps that up. Tyler, I'll have you back. We'll talk about the
for sure. You'll have to get me back on this sometime soon. You know, I'm definitely up for future talks. You know, I definitely appreciate the offer, man, for letting me come on air tonight for sure.
You anytime. You reach out, you tell me, get it put together. It was nice having you. Tyler Kalich, everybody.
Thank you, Drew. Take care.
You too.